Welcome to the show, Gearheads. We just watched the first teenager ever take the lead of the Formula One championships with Kimi Antonelli's victory in Japan. This Jon Massengale, joined by Bob Varsha. And Bob, it is late or early in the morning, depending on how you talk about it, but I thought that was a fantastic race at Suzuka. How about you?
Yeah, it was a weird race. I mean, I watched every minute of it, and it seemed to me that every time I checked, we had done a whole bunch of laps. I mean, the race seemed to go down so quickly, even with that long safety car right in the middle. It just it I kept asking myself if I had dozed off, but I hadn't. It's a very fast racetrack and a very quick quick show.
Well, I wanted to open the show with "The Sky Is Not Falling" because if you listen to Max Verstappen and lots of the drivers after qualifying, it's just they are struggling to get their head around the new energy deployment and harvesting and all of that. But I tell you what, Suzuka doesn't
Right.
serve up that many passes very often, and I'd like to see
Mhm.
a overtake count because that was a lot.
Yeah.
And we were hoping for that with the new rules, with the way the new cars. And, and I don't care how it happens. If people are screaming, it's artificial. Well, what was DRS and what was, you can go on and on. But it was
Yeah.
exciting to me. That's the bottom line.
What do you that I have a it's the wrong time of day to get me going about artificial and gimmick and all that kind of stuff. I mean, what do you want?
Yeah,
If you're watching good racing and it's exciting, and I would argue that today's race was, who cares about, so-called gimmicks? You want to, go back to a parade or processional racing just because everybody's got the same stuff and can't use it creatively. It's
yeah.
I thought it was a good show. I like watching those passes, and you got to the point, at least I did, watching and listening, that you as a viewer began to feel the rhythm of the race, where guys were harvesting energy,
That's
how they were
good.
deploying it, particularly coming off the final chicane at the top of the hill and then down the front straightaway. I mean, we saw time after time guys would get their harvesting off or use all of their electrical power to get from the spoon corner up to the chicane, and then they'd complete the pass on the way in, head down the front straightaway, and whoever they just passed, if they had done their harvesting right, would just grab the position back again. And I have no problem with that whatsoever. Watching these races.
Well, and I almost said it in the pre-show, but I have faith in Formula One, in all the engineers and all the people that are making these decisions. And look, they've already shown the willingness to make changes to the rules because we had a change in the megajoule count, right? So let's just see
Mhm.
how this plays out because
Yeah,
we're getting good racing. And speaking of good racing, let's talk about this
yeah,
racing because the start of the race, Oscar Piastri made up for missing the first two races and rocketed off the start
yeah.
and went straight to the top of the order and led this race right off the bat. And I thought that was a really exciting start, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's more to the point we were just discussing. The starts can be a crapshoot. How many times now have we seen the Mercedes, for all of their power and the neat solution they have to the rules as we read them now, suddenly it's almost like they stall off the line, that they're just not getting away, and they'll start from the front row, and then by the time everybody gets to turn one, they're like fifth and sixth and so
Yeah.
forth. That's what happened to Kimi today. He was sixth at one point after the lights went out, and had to fight his way back. But these rules, for all their faults, whatever they may be, allow drivers to do that. You have the tools to get back up there and to recover and so on. Obviously,
Yep.
the Bearman crash and the subsequent safety car totally altered the complexion of the race. I mean, Oscar Piastri would have won this race had Bearman not crashed.
Yeah, more than likely.
Yeah, but that's the name of the game, and I'm glad Bearman came out of it okay. That was a 50G impact with the trackside fencing, and that was rough.
Yeah,
I
they're
think
saying
Colapinto might have to answer for that.
yeah, maybe not in the race. They said no further investigation on that, but and they're saying that there was no fracture. They've already done an X-ray for Bearman, but we don't know
Right.
the extent of that injury, so
Mhm.
we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, because he was limping pretty good there coming off there. But I,
He's going to be sore.
yeah, you were talking about the start of the race and Antonelli with his such a slow start. I'll throw it up for the YouTubers, but he did a 0 to 100 kilometers that of 3.73 seconds versus Piastri's 2.8. And I was going, wait a minute, 3.73, because 0 to 100 kilometers is 0 to 62 miles an hour. I've got a car in the garage that'll be faster than that. It's gasoline powered. But just the fact that's such a huge discrepancy. And by the way, our intro said that Chris Medland was going to be with us live from the circuit and Jonathan Green was going to be with us. Well, we kind of have that inversed because Jonathan Green is not with us. And he is going to be with me later today at Circuit of the Americas. And Chris Medland has joined us, and he's joined us from home. But he will absolutely not join us right at the top of the hour because that is tradition. So, Chris, I was just saying this. I started the show saying the sky is not falling. This race was fantastic. How many overtakes did we see? I thought it was a fantastic race once again.
It was, and I'm sure you've given Bob his dues, but Bob called that top three as well, I'm pretty sure. And I managed to switch it up because I was copying him. Well, I say copying. I was going for the same, and I decided to go for Leclerc over Piastri. But we both, for some reason, had Russell not finishing in the top three. And I think it was the perfect blend, wasn't it? It wasn't easy to overtake. You could see that Oscar got into a rhythm and eventually went, hey, I can win this. We can keep him at bay if we get the strategy right. But as you saw from Antonelli's clear air, the Merc still had that performance advantage if it had the clear air. And then you add in some of the moves that were, I thought, brilliant into turn one. Some were the normal, pretty easy overtakes, but some were excellent. So I think that was kind of the perfect mix of everything for a hard-fought win in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that we saw Hamilton battling, and he was. Yet Hamilton didn't look like he quite has it all figured out yet, and several of the drivers don't have how to deploy and how to harvest, and if you spend all your energy overtaking, then maybe you get taken by the guy behind you, and also speaking of that, did we ever figure out what happened with Russell when he lost power there? It felt like it was a software issue or a hardware issue, but then he was able to race hard for the rest of the race. Did you hear anything, Chris?
I did, yeah. I'm lucky enough that Mercedes sent around like an on-the-flag kind of update for some of the notes of the race, and they called it an unexpected super clip. So he was trying to save energy to attempt an overtake on Hamilton, and basically the way he'd gone about it to try and generate more energy to be able to attack later, it caught him out how much it then was clipping on the run into Spoon. So that was one where I think the FIA and F1 will need to continue taking a look at stuff like that. But that's something the drivers have talked about, isn't it? Where unexpected is one problem, but the closing speeds it creates, and we saw obviously then what happened with Ollie Bearman's crash. At certain points, it's dangerous. And because Russell was sharp and aware of it and moved to the inside a bit further than he maybe even needed to, it allowed Leclerc a free passage where otherwise you could have had a real misunderstanding. Either one car goes in the back of the other at pretty high speed, or, dare I say it, maybe worse, something like happened with Bearman, where one loses control on the grass and goes off at over 300 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, that was a scary looking crash. And obviously with 50 Gs, it was a big impact. But so what do you think about the way that went down, Chris? Do you think that that Colapinto was just not used to this big of a delta, and now is do we penalize the drivers now and say, okay, you should know that there are bigger deltas now, bigger differences in speed, and you should be aware of that. What do you think?
I think they are aware of it, and I do think it just caught him out, and it would be
Mhm.
unfair to then say, "Well, it's all your fault for being just on the line you were normally going to be on." You could also argue with Ollie that there is a point you start to see it, and it's do you keep your foot pinned to make the move, which is totally understandable, and you should. And he's got very little time to react. It must be said. It always looks easier from the onboard camera, but also, which side you're going to go, and the way the track goes there, with it bending to the right and him going to the left. I think he then just created this momentum for himself. That was a problem. That was a bit of a perfect storm. I do think, something like what we saw from Russell was elite awareness to kind of go, I need to kind of get out of the way a bit here. And I'm sure Franco maybe will have that now in the back of his mind for the next time. But he was on the racing line, and maybe for him it was unexpected as well how much he was derating or clipping. And similarly, for Bearman, maybe he was actually using a bit more power at that point. You never know. He might have just been in a better state of charge. So it was, the two together combining. But I think it's not really fair to expect the driver who's ahead and still trying to keep a position to have to react so quickly and pick a side at that point. Because also that can cause confusion. I think being on the racing line is actually the safest thing to do. It's the most predictable thing if you don't change your line.
Yeah. Bob, what do you think about my question about whether or not essentially saying that some of the drivers are figuring this quicker than others? It looks like it, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, and I suppose that's to be expected. I mean,
Sure.
given the radical change and the various new functions that these cars carry around the track, it stands to reason that some are going to pick it up quicker than others. Just as Mercedes stole the march on the rest of the field once the new engine regulations were out there. We heard rumors all through 2025 that Mercedes, had a great solution for its power unit in this new generation of cars. And so, yeah, that and the driver's ability to take it up, get their heads around it, and use it. I was just thinking as Chris mentioned, the Colapinto crash or Bearman crash. Colapinto just ushered him. With the super clipping and other things going on, are we getting into a situation where the car and its various computers is playing too large a role in the performance of the car, and that endangers the driver's ability to control that performance? I mean, okay, I'm gonna hit the super clipping button and drive right through there, and whoa, this thing slowed down a whole lot more than I thought it would. Is that where we are? Are we getting too computerized? I guess might be the way to look at it.
Good question. What do you think, Chris?
I'd say so, yeah, to be honest. I get that drivers already do a lot behind the wheel, and you're asking even more of them if you say you choose where the car starts to harvest and you hit a button to make it do that. But I think putting it in their hands generally is a safer thing, or just removing the ability for software to be doing that in terms of clipping.
Right.
Now, that could cause some issues elsewhere. I'm sure otherwise they would have done that. But the harvesting that you get from braking as normal, or from where the car is lifted off, I think is fine. But when it's just doing things itself because it's programmed to, that's what's leading to a lot of the frustrations with qualifying that we've heard from drivers, is that they attack a corner a bit better, they take more speed into it, maybe they carry that more speed into the apex, and because they weren't lifting off so much, suddenly they haven't quite generated or harvested as much energy as they might have a previous lap, and the system goes, got to do some more now, so out the next corner it doesn't give you the power that you need. That's counterintuitive to anyone. I don't think anyone wants to see that. It's something we talked about, I think, pre-race, though. It's how quickly can this technology improve and evolve? How much can maybe the FIA and F1 allow developments to be introduced even mid-season, which they normally don't do? They homologate the engines. But if we can get to a point where that is needed far less, then I don't think it's such a problem. We are at the worst stage of it, being the very start of the cycle. But yeah, I do think it's at the moment when it does something like that's too much influence, because of the way it then completely changes speeds in the way that we've seen today.
Yeah. Well, back to the racing. Chris, I opened the show before you got here. I said we have the youngest ever Formula One championship leader in Kimi Antonelli, but also by its very nature, the youngest winner ever to let's see, what was the other stat I had there? The youngest, was it 19 years, 216 days youngest ever to lead the championship. But still, I just want to say this: an amazing race from Kimi. Right? I don't remember my other stat, but amazing race. He did get a little help with a pit stop, right, with the safety car, and Bob, rightly so, said that Piastri probably would have won this race. But we got to celebrate what Kimi Antonelli's doing. The team certainly was today. And I have one observation. I think the happiest man at the Mercedes team, maybe Kimi's the second, but I think Toto Wolff, because I think that this is proving out his decision
selection
to decide to bring on this young, really, really young driver and accelerate him into this path. And I think he's being proven right. What do y'all think?
Absolutely.
No question. Because I said in our preview show, I was critical of both Toto Wolff and Kimi Antonelli on his debut in a Formula One car, running first practice 2 years ago. And so, now credit where credit is due. Obviously, Antonelli is a very, very special talent in the same way that, all the greats were, I'm sure, but certainly guys in more recent history like Max Verstappen. And you find right away that this guy's got something special. Lewis Hamilton, the same way. Some guys grind it out. I'm thinking of
sure
guys like Nigel Mansell and, well, I'm sure there's bunches of them.
Nico Rosberg, maybe?
Yeah, or...
yeah, there's plenty.
I'm looking at his face. McLaren, two-time world champion, 98.
Fernando Alonso.
Yeah.
Oh, Mika Hakkinen.
Mika Hakkinen, right? Went like 99 races before he won one of them.
Well, Hülkenberg right now. I mean,
look at Hülkenberg. Yeah. Although I don't put Nico Hülkenberg on the same level as guys who win world championships, but yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get our break in real quick,
fully agree.
And we'll continue this conversation. We'll be back right after these messages. Okay, we're going back to YouTube. See what's going on over there. Tim's here.
Crickets chirping.
No, there's a handful of people here. Let's see. Tim's here. He's saying, of course, it's the middle of the day for him. He says, exciting race. Hope Ollie's okay. Yep. Andy P says x-rays were good, so that's a good sign, but we still don't know the extent of the injury. We'll wait and see.
I saw him walking through the garages.
Yeah. Tim, this is a really good point. He says, how about some decent microphones in the cool-down room? It's like, okay, either give it to us or not give it to us. Oh, my gosh, Chris Medland is picking up the mantle. Johnny Green is not here to eat, and Chris is doing it for us, so thank you, Chris. What is it, 8 in the morning there, Chris? Something like that?
Whataburger.
He's muted. He's having his breakfast. Let's see.
Where's the beef?
Andy P says that Oscar was legit on for the win, but once that safety car came out, pretty much cooked it. Yep. Did y'all hear the? Well, I'll wait till we come back. I want to read the quote that Oscar said after he was during the interview. Andy P says if they can fix the qualifying, these rules do have hope given how they race. I think they've got plenty of hope, guys. I have faith. But of course, I am a massive glass half full kind of person. So there you go. This disappointing for Lewis Hamilton.
The willingness is there to adjust.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're already showing that, right? With the changes in the rules already.
And it figures, I'm going to find my soapbox, which I had around here somewhere earlier, about testing. If teams had time to go testing as much as they wanted or needed to.
All right, here we go.
You wouldn't be putting it in front of the public.
I'm George Russell, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to Speed City, America's voice of Formula One.
All right, welcome back. Thank you, George Russell, for bringing us back. And Russell was dealing with a car that had a suspension update that's not treating the car right, but he also had A bit of bad luck, and you heard him say that on the radio with the timing of the safety car. But that's racing, right? You're going to get some of those, and you're going to, you're going to win some and lose some of those. Always happens. But well, Chris, what do you think about Russell's race and the way he went about everything today?
It's an interesting one because before we started the show, we were talking about started the race. We were talking about how good Kimi had looked compared to George and just had that little advantage over him all weekend. And then you get the start, and Kimi's was terrible. George's wasn't brilliant, but I think there was just two strong ones actually either side with Oscar and Charles, and then a great move from Lando around the outside of George as well to demote him out the top three. But from that point on, George suddenly looked really strong in the first few laps. Looked like he pushed really hard, got some moves done, and I thought, overtaking's a bit too easy here. But at the very least, the Merc advantage is so big that they're just going to cruise to the front and still have a 1-2. And once he got into second, he really struggled and did actually drop back from Piastri and didn't have the tyres or the pace to keep up with him and started to actually lose ground before the pit stop. Now, yes, he was unlucky with the pit stop timing, totally true, but only two cars were lucky with it, and that was Antonelli and Hamilton. So I think George's reaction was because his teammate was going to get the better of him. He still ended up ahead of Lewis at that point, but it was because it was his teammate benefiting. But prior to that, the pace Antonelli had shown in clear air on the mediums was actually really strong. He was reeling Russell in before that pit stop. And I do think that had the safety car not happened, you'd have had Piastri leading and you'd have had Kimi right on George's tail and looking quicker. And that, in a weird way, could have looked worse for Russell because he could have been overtaken on pure pace by his teammate and beaten when he'd had a head start almost. And that would have been pretty damaging. This way, we don't know that would have happened for sure. So maybe I'm being overly harsh on George, but also he has the reasoning to point to of where he got unlucky, which he did. But I just don't think he's looked fully comfortable all weekend compared to Antonelli.
Yeah, maybe that suspension, is just hard to get settled into the car, right? So, but Bob, there were so many twists and turns all through this race, and just little plot things changing all the way through. But how about the Ferrari battles? Once again, Ferrari keeps delivering and almost crashing into each other, or maybe they're just doing excellent driving. But it was fun to watch from the outside.
Absolutely. And, congratulations to the Scuderia for allowing their drivers to race each other hard that way. They were, wheel to wheel at a number of corners in that race. And again, the luck of the draw and the timing of the safety car, helped some, hurt others. But, that's racing. That's how this whole thing works. And
yeah. Absolutely.
I just come away with a really positive feeling having watched this race about the new rules, about the new technologies, about the quality of the driving in Formula One right now. It's just, it's a good situation, I think. And there was some sterling pit work going on out there. I wanted to mention too. I think Charles Leclerc was the first one to pit, and Ferrari gave him a 2.1 second pit stop. I mean, that's mid-season form. Right
you
there.
Stole my thunder because I have those marked. Leclerc's was a 2.1.
Every chance I get.
Hamilton's was a 2.0. So 2.0 and 2.1 for Ferrari. That is some stellar work in the pit stop.
Keep doing that. Somewhere down the road, it's going to pay off.
Chris,
not just that.
Go ahead.
The one that actually stood out to me was when Oscar came in from the lead and McLaren made their call when they were going to make their stop. And I just had this horrible feeling that they were going to have a slow one that was going to cost them because you were like, it's all set up so nicely. But also because they'd done one racing pit stop all year because of the way things had played out. So they'd just done it with Lando in the one-stop race in Melbourne. That had been it. So I thought there's a chance of some rustiness here. We're all just feeling the pressure. None of it. Clean enough. He'd have been in the lead.
Yep.
I am a little bit disappointed in a strange way because I think we got probably some better racing action as a result of the safety car in the end and the way that shuffled the pack and we had different drivers fighting. But it would have been so good to see, could Oscar have hung on for that win ahead of the two Mercedes if he'd have stayed in the lead, which he would have been. With the timing that Mercs were coming in, he'd have been in the lead. And would he have stayed there because he looked capable of it? He didn't lose another position after the restart. Yeah,
it's pretty encouraging for McLaren. The car looks pretty quick. I mean, look, we've got if in the battles between McLaren and Ferrari. I mean, if they can, as the year evolves on, who knows? By Miami, we don't really know what to expect. We got 5 weeks for these teams to work, right?
Yeah,
Well,
Miami's going to be interesting.
McLaren's a big one for Miami. We've seen it time and time again now. I think 3 years in consecutive years that they brought a major upgrade to Miami and made a big step. And they were looking to update the car in Bahrain, like pretty much everyone was, because there's a huge development curve right now with these cars. And Bahrain was a track they all knew very well from testing. It was easier to get parts there. So round 4 was when the big upgrades were expected. So that will be delayed now. But McLaren said when they launched their car, they intentionally went for quite a, I don't think it's the term they used, but it's the one that comes to mind for me. It was quite a plain design direction, like one that was not really aggressive in any way, like shape or form in one direction, that gave them the flexibility to learn from the car in pre-season, learn from their rivals and what others had done, and look at solutions, and then follow a path a bit more that way, or react more in that way. And they've talked up again an upgrade in Miami that will be coming, and that they can close this gap. And Lando was talking on Thursday about huge potential in the car, and he thinks that they can get to the position of being a race-winning team regularly, like this season again, and end the year with the best car. Now, we've seen a true reflection of how competitive they can be when they have a smooth weekend. And yes, they're clearly a step behind, certainly Mercedes, but maybe Ferrari. I think they've just shown that they've got the power unit potential that Mercedes has, and they're catching up quickly on that front. So I'm quite excited by what I've seen from McLaren. I got quite a bit of heat because I put them down on my pre-season predictions, like after pre-season, but before the first race. I put McLaren to win the Constructors' Championship because, and I admit, Kimi Antonelli has ruined it for me already. I said I thought Russell would score the majority of points for Merc, but Antonelli might be a bit up and down still. I thought both McLaren drivers would score heavily. Didn't go so well in the first 2 races. But I said with the same power unit, the McLaren has been the better car over the last 3 or 4 years. So what's to say that they can't do that again across this year? I still feel they can do that. I genuinely think they can get on a par with Mercedes this season. But the way that Antonelli and Russell both started, and the struggles of the first couple of rounds for McLaren, might just make it a bit of a stretch that they could win the Constructors.
Well, I think Mercedes is looking over their shoulder right now, going into Miami, thinking exactly what you're saying, and saying, hey, wait a minute. We saw, Lando Norris got his first win ever at Miami, a couple of years ago. So the Miami Momentum, we'll call it, for McLaren, the Miami McLaren Momentum. We'll see if it comes true.
Well, just to follow up on something Bob said there about the being encouraged by the new rules and what he's seen today and that sort of race.
Yeah,
I think also we've had 6 different podium finishes in the first 3 races now, because we've had Oscar joining both Ferraris, both of the Mercedes as well. Maybe it's 5. I'm doing my maths badly. Yeah, 5. But still, it's 3 teams that are fairly closely matched. Mercedes do have an advantage, but it's not to the level of 2014, for example. And at the start of a rule cycle, and how quickly, even just over these first 3 races, we've seen improvements in terms of the way that they go about their racing, but the field kind of closing up a bit around Mercedes. I think they're all really good signs for this being an exciting season still. Yes, big weaknesses that need ironing out, certainly around qualifying, but this could have been a year where A, the product was far worse, and B, Mercedes could have been miles up the road, or someone could have been miles up the road, and there was never a hope of anyone else challenging them. So I think it's a strong start in that sense. That's maybe even better than I expected.
What do we make of the fact that once he was out in the clear, Kimi Antonelli became a rocket ship? I mean, he was running full 1 second a lap quicker than Piastri at one point. And he stretched out his lead to 15, 16 seconds. Might have gone further, but the team told him to cool it. I mean, where does that come from? I mean,
right after they said cool it, he set the fastest lap. But I'll let Chris try to answer that question because I don't have an answer there. What do you think, Chris?
I think it's 2 things. I think one, the Mercedes had a pace advantage in clear air. I think that was true. Yeah. And from the predictions pre-race, they thought that McLaren could be somewhere fairly close, but about a quarter of a second off, maybe per lap. And let's say that was about right. I think it could have been, given that Piastri held up Russell and pulled away from him in the first stint. But I think once Piastri was behind Antonelli, he didn't rue the situation for too long, but realised I'm not getting back ahead. We're not quick enough to go and overtake a Mercedes. So my race was with everyone behind still, and he was on older tyres. He'd made a pit stop before Antonelli had and before Russell had. Mm-hmm. So he was thinking, and also Hamilton, who was directly behind him at that point. So
Right.
he's thinking, I need to manage these tyres. We don't know how they'll go to the end of the race. McLaren hadn't run the hard tyre at all weekend. They never used them in practice. So I think there was a conservative approach, which worked from Piastri, going, I've got to get these tyres to the end of the race. I need to make sure I've got something in hand in case George comes up behind me or Lewis is quicker on these tyres. And that was just, I'm measuring my performance to make sure I can defend from other people. Antonelli was therefore allowed to pull away. So his advantage was made bigger, which also takes a bit of pressure off him. He doesn't have to worry about saving so much. And he'd made his pit stop a bit later. And he had the clear air. He didn't have to fight with anyone. All those things added up. And then, yes, I don't think he slowed down at any point either. So I think that gap, again, looked bigger than in reality it would have been just with a clean time trial style race. But that's the beauty of racing, isn't it? You never get any of those scenarios. And that's why Piastri genuinely had a shot at winning this race, is that when he was the lead car, he was quick enough to keep the quicker Mercedes behind.
I love the fact that we have a teenager leading the championship, because when he won in China, he did a burnout on the very last corner, not waiting and calmly doing donuts. He did a burnout, full speed. And then this week, when the team says, just take it easy, win the race, he does fastest lap. I love it. All right, guys, let's get a break in real quick, and then we're going to talk about some of the other racing that was a little further down the grid. You're listening to Speed City. Back after these messages. All right. By the way, y'all are watching an experiment of how much can the human brain take? Because I think we can officially talk about this, because Jonathan Green and I are going to be doing, Chris, this is something we could talk about, because you wrote an article about Max Verstappen being enamored with Super GT, and Jonathan and I are going to be doing providing the American voice of Super GT. So we did a big long test for them for 2 hours. And then we jump into, that was Thursday night. Then I'm on the mics all day Friday, all day Saturday out at Coda. Blast home. I got 1 hour sleep before I came to the studio. And then I'm going to get 5 hours of sleep tonight after this before I go to Coda live on the radio. And yeah, you're witnessing how much can the human brain take. I don't feel at full capacity right now. So please excuse the lack of snap on my side.
Not at all. One, that's really impressive. Two, I'm just pleased for you that you don't then have to go and get on a plane and travel for 12 hours off the back of it, or to get there.
Yeah.
At least you've got your own bed for it, but that is brutal, that disruption to your sleep.
Yeah, it's true.
Very careful. Don't let exhaustion become an excuse for saying something really dumb.
Well, yeah, that's true.
It's happened to me many a time. I don't know what's worse, exhaustion or boredom, but either one will kill you.
Andy P says, I hope you get a nap. Well, Andy, we're going to be on the radio from noon to 4 Austin time. And then if Casey doesn't make me do a live show for the 5 o'clock Sunday, we'll just replay this one. I might be able to get home. And at that point, it's too late to take a nap.
Shut your mouth.
Casey.
Well, I can't help you out. I'm going over to Alabama tomorrow to watch the Indy cars go around.
Oh, that's great.
Nice.
All right, here we go. Coming back.
I'm Liam Lawson, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to Speed City, America's voice of Formula One.
Thank you, Liam Lawson. Liam Lawson finished in the points today. Is that right? Let's see. Yes, he finished 9th. And I had right behind Max Verstappen, and Max Verstappen finished right behind Pierre Gasly. So the big three with Antonelli, Piastri, Leclerc, Russell, Norris, and Hamilton 1 through 6. But after that, it was Gasly, Verstappen, Lawson, and Ocon for the rest of the points. And I'm sure Haas are happy to have some points, because it was a little bit of a surprise to see Bearman not doing so well this weekend. And of course, now that he's got this injury, we don't know exactly about that. I hope he is not too badly hurt. We know he's not fractured and bone fracture after that huge impact. And by the way, that was a massive impact, Chris. I saw you tweet that. It looked scary, didn't it?
Yeah, it really was. So the closing speed, I think we had, it was on the broadcast. I was following the Sky broadcast. So Bernie Collins was looking at that, said that it was 45 kilometers an hour over Frankie Colapinto, so about 30 miles an hour closing speed just on the car ahead. And because that's kind of sudden, that's why it catches him out. But then he went off at about 192 miles an hour, like onto the grass, lost control. And he didn't get to slow the car much because it went sideways and bounced over the grass. So it wasn't getting much braking performance. And then it meant the impact was side on was 50G. And I do think people forget, one, how dangerous this sport is. I mean, this is a racetrack that's claimed lives before. And sadly, Jules Bianchi, we know that we lost here for different reasons of what he hit. But going off at high speed in a racing car, when you hit something, you can really hurt yourself. And yeah, Ollie at that speed, that impact, it shows the incredible safety that is involved, that he did climb out and he limped away and you sort of worried for him. It's apparently just bruising on his knee. So his knees normally, you do have padding, but it's quite easy for your knees to knock together in that scenario. Or even worse, the steering column getting in the way as well. So you can get some pretty bad bruising, and it seems he's got that, but no fractures. And the fact that he was able to walk away himself before he needed to take a bit of a break, but B, then he was walking again after the medical centre. Bob mentioned he was in the garage to see the team. Didn't look like he was limping too badly by then either. Yeah, incredible protection for what is. We're just so used to watching a driver jump out from a shunt like that, but yeah, 50G is something that actually the human body isn't meant to be withstanding. Side on as well. So yeah, it's remarkable that we see those sorts of crashes and go, oh, big one. Anyway, carry on with the race. What's that done for the pecking order type thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And I like I told you guys, I'm spending the day at MotoGP and watching how injury in that sport is so prevalent. I mean, it's every single race. You talk about the speed that Ollie Bearman was going, 190 miles an hour. I saw Marc Marquez have a crash early in the weekend, and he was literally the slow-mo. He was literally flying across gravel because he flew off the bike and was going, over 100 miles an hour. And I'm thinking, how do these guys not, we don't hear about honestly deaths more in that sport, but obviously the suits and everything, but yes, this is racing, and there is peril for sure. So, but let's look at these further down the grid. Pierre Gasly, what did you think of his race, Bob? Finishing P7.
Yeah, and I was kind of enjoying watching him make Max Verstappen's day a lot longer than the four-time world champion would have liked it to be. I've always kind of had a soft spot for Pierre Gasly, I must say, and it's nice to see him do well. He got the one win in Monza a few years back. Mm-hmm. May never get another one, but he doesn't need that because he had that one. And he was another example, I guess, of the Alpine with the Mercedes engine giving him fits. Granted, Red Bull's not at the peak of their capability right now. They will be eventually, as we were saying earlier about McLaren. But yeah, I mean, Gasly is he's a deserving guy. He's always kind of at the precipice of the top 10, and every now and then he steps over into that golden light of point scoring. So good on him.
Well, I'm glad you said all that because it's exactly the way I was feeling about it. It's like I feel like he gets everything out of the car, and it's a bit underrated. But Chris, I'll go to you for the next one. What about Max Verstappen? I don't know if this was real, but on social media, I saw Max getting passed in one of these yo-yos, may have been Gasly, and he was waving in the car, waving at Gasly passing him by. I don't know if you saw that, but what do you think about his race and what's going on really what I'm asking, what's going on at Red Bull?
I haven't seen that, but you're going to make me look it up now to see if it's legit. But because they did go back and forth, I did see the two of them with a couple of moves. It'll come up for me, but
I'll send it.
It was very entertaining to see that Max was kind of in a bit more of a fight, and that Gasly had the machinery to hold him off. But I thought that was actually a solid recovery for Verstappen. A lot of it happened early, and he made some good moves, and he looked quick in the first part of the race. Quick being kind of relative, given the fact that he's trying to come through in a Red Bull, but realistically finish no higher than 7th. He's not going to trouble the top 6. But I was really impressed with the way he went racing with Gasly, and then the fact that Gasly managed to hold him off at the end was entertaining too. We've got to remember though, I think I said it towards the end of last year, actually, maybe on one of our wheel-to-wheel shows, but I expected Red Bull to be a midfield team this year. They had to create a power unit department from nowhere.
Yeah.
From absolutely nowhere. And having done that, then they were actually looking way more competitive than I think anyone expected in pre-season testing. And quickly, sometimes you do have to listen to teams when they're saying, no, we haven't seen everything from everyone else yet, and we're not going to be fighting for wins. We got out on track and realised, no, they're not quite there, but they've not had it smooth. I do think they are the fourth quickest team, but only just. And that's the thing, that if they don't have a clean qualifying, for example, then they haven't got the pace or the power to get ahead of any of the midfield teams. But I still think that's actually a good starting point for such a brand new power unit operation. And that gives them some potential for future years. And if we see that gap closing, I think that's the sort of thing that will maybe appease Max a little bit as well. If he starts to enjoy a bit more the racing and finds that Red Bull are making strides, then that's a project you want to be a part of, I think.
So you're predicting he's not going to retire from Formula One and goes to Super GT or somewhere else. I mean, the way he's been talking.
With regard to Red Bull, I mean, think of the brain drain, as I said, the people that they've lost. A lot of personnel scattered elsewhere in the pit lane.
For sure.
Oh, hugely. I think I found the video that you were on about as well.
Well,
and
F1 took it. You saw it?
I found a version of it though. Yeah, and it is Gasly who completes the move, and the left hand comes off. I shouldn't really show this, but I will. The left hand comes off the steering wheel from from Max. Just say
that's it. That's what I saw.
Bye.
Which Alonso did as well, didn't he? In Australia, I think it was when. China, when Perez passed him. So, the drivers that are frustrated by their machinery, you're seeing this. But for others, I think they're appreciating, you've got to then work it out, how you're finding your way past. It's not just one and done because you have a quicker car. But no, I think, look, Max is finding ways of keeping himself entertained and busy with some of his other testing. It was really interesting to hear him say that Super GT drive he did at Fuji last week in the soaking wet on Wednesday was a lot of fun, but that he really wants to race one of those cars if he can find a race that makes sense. And he says it's a bit of a shame there's not a standout one race you go and target. It's just a championship where they're all pretty equal, and it sometimes feels a bit odd to jump in for one championship round that just could disrupt someone else's season. But I think we could see him in one. And those things are giving him, I think, more enjoyment. But I still do maintain that when you hear some of the drivers talk who are not winning races all the time, but they are in the fight at the moment, and they're enjoying it because they've got machinery that lets them fight near the front. I think that's true in a race, and I think that's why we're not hearing that from Max yet. I totally get the qualifying hatred, basically, that we get from him. But I do think he could be way more positive in terms of his enjoyment of the races if he's given better machinery, and that's what you want the best drivers to be in. So hopefully Red Bull can do that so that we see a bit more of Max Verstappen mixing it with the likes of Ferrari, McLaren and Mercedes.
Have you heard anything about the influence that Ford has had on that power unit in that partnership with Red Bull?
If I'm honest, last year and previously, Red Bull were quite keen to play down the impact of Ford. Like they were saying that there was some expertise and support there, certainly on battery technology, but that a lot of it was also then funding for Red Bull doing a lot of the work themselves. And this wasn't explicitly said, but I think there was a little part of Red Bull going, this is such a big undertaking, such a big task, so complex, brand new to us. We need clarity over who's doing what. So we're going to have control of pretty much everything. We're going to do this all ourselves. Where we have a real need, we're going to go to Ford and say, hey, can you help with this or that? What do you know about X, Y, and Z? Manufacturing certain parts, apparently they could do very quickly. But they wanted to be clear where their own weaknesses were as a power unit manufacturer as well, and where they'd need to improve and invest. So I think it was partly by design from Red Bull's side that they went, we're going to maintain control here. Plus, that's a very Red Bull trait. That if you look at when it nearly was Porsche becoming the power unit supplier, they wanted some ownership stake, and Red Bull were not willing to give that up, and that all fell through. So I do wonder if Ford would have liked to have had a bit more influence. But from what they have helped with, from what I hear, a lot of it was on the manufacturing side as well, at speeding up some processes, which was crucial. If as we say, they looked good in pre-season, but they were out, they were running, they were reliable. That in itself was a remarkable achievement for such a brand new setup. So I think that influence has still been very valuable. But maybe it will take a little bit longer, and for Ford to work out what they want to put in, to see if they increase their influence on the actual overall power unit.
All right, well, let's get our last break in real quick. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit further down the grid, including Alonso and the Cadillac teams, and we'll discuss all those after this. Okay, checking in. It's getting a little quiet. It is 2:45 in the morning here.
I wonder why.
Yeah. Bob, I always, whenever I say the time, I realize it's an hour later for you. Almost 4 in the morning. Hey, at least I didn't skip China this year.
That's commitment.
Yeah, like I did last year. I've been in it for the for all the marbles with you guys.
And you've got a day job. Yikes.
Yeah, that's all right.
Point.
We had a good time out at MotoGP because at the end of the day, I didn't even talk about this. At the end of the day, we had a little. There was a little gathering at the one of the car condo complexes across the street from Coda.
Nice.
So I went over there for an hour and had some fantastic Terry Black's barbecue. So it was.
I no longer feel sorry for you.
yeah, no me.
Jonathan had a giant plate of it, and then he took another one home with him. And I was like, "Good on you! I should have thought of that." He climbed in the car.
That might have been from Murphy.
And you know what? You're absolutely spot on, Mr. Varsha. I guarantee you some of that was for his doggy, the love of his life, Murphy.
Mine's been very good. Monty's been with us for the whole show, just curled up on his bed.
Andy P says, "Oh, sorry,
Smart dog.
Your doggy." Okay.
Yeah, but when I did that Damon Hill interview, he was in the office with me as well, and that was 1 a.m. local time, and he wasn't having any of it, and he was scratching at the door to get out. He was just like, "No, don't like this."
Said you're rambling on. Andy P's here. He's running out of intelligent things to say. Okay, so it's not just me. Oh.
You nearly threw it, Andy P and John.
And there's Tim. He's still there. He's all right. We're coming back.
Hello to everyone, this is Gunther Steiner, this is Speed City.
Welcome back to Speed City, America's voice of Formula One.
By the way, I got to hang out with Gunther Steiner. He came in the booth at MotoGP, so it was fun. But Chris, I'm going to give you wild card. We've talked about the top 10 and the bottom 10. Audi finished 11 and 13. That's a cool story. Isaac Hadjar looking pretty good once again in the Red Bull. Or Arvid Lindblad. Which one of those do you want to talk about?
I could go on all of them, but actually Audi probably, because
this is what we do for a living. Sure, I'll talk about.
Yeah. I can't give any of them. I've got, me, I don't shut up. But I'd say Audi actually, because I felt like more was on the table for them this weekend. Hülkenberg's now back-to-back 11th places in the 2 races he started, and I think with the way that Bortletto qualified in the top 10, Hülkenberg just outside. The start didn't go well for Bortletto, but it went better for Hülkenberg. And it just looked like they had some strong pace at different points of the weekend. And I don't know if Nico maybe got a bit too held up. I think it was trying to pass Hadjar at one stage to get himself up into 11th. I think that just took him too long. And by not managing that, he then wasn't able to get himself onto the back of Ocon for the points. But that's something where Audi have shown there's some really good performance there, actually. Again, for a new team. Certainly, call them a new team. A rebranding of Sauber, but a new engine manufacturer, to hit the ground running in the way they have too. I think it's been very, very solid. But
Hülkenberg had a very strange pit stop. His one stop, I guess, late in the race. He just seemed to come bouncing out of his pit box and then proceeded up the pit lane at what looked like a very reduced speed from what the other cars were doing. That may have just been the perspective. But yeah, I thought he was in some trouble for a while, and yet he did finish 11th.
It was a good stop. It was a 2.4 stop, but I didn't notice the trundling, as they say in the UK. Chris, isn't that what he was doing, is trundling along?
Trundling's a great word, yeah. Little trundle. Yeah, I didn't spot that one, actually, but that could well have been another impact. And again, with a team that's completely changed and overhauled and a lot of new people there, you can sometimes get some issues. Certainly with the power unit side as well, as Audi work all of that out. But it just feels like this was a day that there was points on offer, especially with the timing of the safety car, things like that. That I thought they could get some. But I know we skimmed over it earlier, but I've been very impressed with Liam Lawson so far, because Arvid Lindblad is giving him a run for his money. He is quick, and he is showing him up at times in terms of putting together like a qualifying lap or something. But Lawson, like China, for example, was never really comfortable with his car or that quick. Scored 2 7th places and was just maximising the result. I'd say he's done the same today. 9th behind Gasly and Verstappen. He wasn't going to beat either of those, but he did keep Ocon at bay and picked up another couple of points. And while Lindblad scored at the first race of the season, he hasn't scored in the last 2. And Lindblad did struggle today, didn't he? You could see the lack of experience on the tyres in the first stint, I think. Pushed them a bit too hard. So I think we're seeing both of them like impressive things from the 2 racing bulls. Lawson's having to raise his game. Lindblad is showing the raw pace that's really exciting for the future, but that he's also still got a lot to learn.
So we talk about natural talent, right? Somebody, wow, they're natural talent. Well, I think Lawson has the most natural confidence of any driver. He seems to just, he was shaken, right? When he went to Red Bull and they kicked him out after 2 races, but he bounced back and his confidence level never seems to drop. He always seems like, he's like, I'm going to go up against anybody. No one's going to get the better of me. So I do like that about him. That's fun. All right. So Carlos Sainz in the Williams and finishing 15th, and Albon. What happened to Albon? I can't remember.
What happened to Williams?
Yeah, Williams ended up using it as a bit of a test session, really. I think they realised that they weren't making progress in a race, that they're still overweight, and they've got trouble. Okay. And they ended up...
it was 2 laps down, yeah.
Yeah, they made a number of pit stops with Albon. I think he made either 3 or 4 in total. And the team said he was doing some tests ahead of Miami. So they were using the track time. Weirdly more understandable now, because there's such a big break. That's the only bit of track running you're doing for the next 5 weeks. And if you've got something you want to learn, you might as well go out there and do it now.
Okay, Cadillac. So, Bob, how long do we give Cadillac grace to linger without moving up? I know it's a big question, but Cadillac's a big team, big name, big money behind it. Sure. In other words, when are we going to say, "Hey, it's time to step up, guys"? You're beating Aston Martin, but they've clearly got big problems.
Well, I give them at least a season. I mean, they promise upgrades to their cars at every round of the championship this year, which is a pretty aggressive strategy, I would say. Yeah, and like so many of the other teams we speak of up and down the pit lane, there is so much that is still coming together, so much that has to, congeal and work on a regular basis. We hear it from Graham Loudon, their team principal, all the time. He said, we're proving that we can work together as a team, and people are finding, even if they have great skills, where do those skills fit into the chemistry of the entire operation? So, I'll give them all the time they want. I do expect to see them improve. They have too much in their favor that they would not improve, but get a while before they threaten the points, at least.
Well, when you say congeal, I think of spoiled food. But Chris, so what do you think they might? Do you think they might have? I guess the real question is, will their rate of improvement outpace someone else?
I'd be surprised, if I'm honest, because it's a new team, because they're still building so much, because they're still hiring, and there's processes need to be put in place or need to be honed to actually be able to develop a car successfully anyway. But when you look at, if you go to the facility at Silverstone still, it is a building site, a lot of it. They're still building it up. Fishers in Indiana is going to be an incredible facility when it's full and open, but it's a long way from that still. So there's realistically, you wouldn't be racing a car yet. You would still be taking this year to build up that infrastructure, and you'd race a car next year. But they didn't get that option. Unlike Haas, who could delay their entry for 1 year when they did into 2016. Cadillac were told you have to come in 26. So I think we're seeing a very kind of basic effort in terms of a car for what they could have done if they were given another 12 months. But the same then on car development. I'd be really impressed if they outdevelop anyone. I think there should still be bigger gains to be had than anybody else because of where they are. But that doesn't mean, that they're on offer. But whether they can actually execute that, I'm not too sure yet. So, like I said, I'd be impressed. I have hope that just learning and getting experience, they'll get a bit closer to the rest of the field, and then maybe they can hold that position because car development might be good enough to stay, the same distance from anyone else. But we're going to have such a high rate of development this year across the grid, and there's such experience elsewhere. It's a big ask.
Okay. But the backstory to all of that expected improvement in the teams is the fact that they have lost 2 race weekends.
Yeah.
They might lose 2 more. I mean, at the rate this screwy world is going about its business, we could lose Qatar and Abu Dhabi as well at the end of the season. And that may have a big one, not only on people's development, but on the championship. How about if you're, engaged in a tough fight for the world title and all of a sudden the last 2 rounds of the championship go away? That would be a
good point. Yep. All right, Chris, Aston Martin, is this the Alonso was able to finish the race? He was a lap down, but he finished. Is this the first race that they've run full? Well, I say full, almost a full race. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, first race distance fully completed, and it is limited in the sense that, as you say, it wasn't, I think, every lap, but also the pace wasn't incredible. But it's still a step in the right direction. That must mean that the car was a little bit more comfortable. I do think probably the safety car timing helped because there's a breather there just near the middle of the race that we restarted at the halfway point. So if it had been getting really uncomfortable for a spell, then there's 4 laps where you're rolling around much slower, not getting the same vibrations, and Alonso can kind of recover a little bit. It was a water pressure issue, I think, for Stroll as well. So it wasn't actually a vibration issue. A step in the right direction, but they'll need to do a lot of work over these next few weeks.
Actually, now you say that, I bet Honda's a little bit of a celebration. The fact that Alonso was able to stay in the car and not vibrate his teeth out and finish the race. So I think, what was it? Stroll got 31 laps I put in my notes. So, we're almost out of time. There seemed like there was somebody else I wanted to hit. I think I've covered all of every single runner and rider there. But look, let's talk about this off season because it's going to be 5 weeks, right? So we Speed City are going to continue this off season. That's okay. You're right. That's not the right word. It's
pause.
It's it, but
Need some sleep.
I need some sleep. But we're going to have 5 weeks off in the middle of the year, so it just seems weird to me. But we are going to continue to do shows, Speed City. And of course, Chris and I are going to still continue to do wheel to wheel. I'm assuming, Chris, right?
We are indeed. We're going to be finding some innovative ways of filling the gap, I think, and getting a few interviews hopefully in there. Hopefully, teams and team members will be friendly, given that they don't have to go traveling for 5
Good point.
weeks.
Good point. But we're going to continue to do our Sunday night show. So stay tuned and follow us on our social, and we're going to have some things to announce too, officially. So. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks for staying up late. If you are staying up late, and Chris, have a great rest of your day since you're just getting started.
I will. I'm going to finish my work and get a beer.
Oh, there you go. I love it. All right. Well, thanks, everybody.
In Japan.
All right. We'll talk to you guys next week.